Welcome, everybody, to Who's Your Band. I'm your host, Jeffrey Paul. I'm with my co-host, Mr. Sean Morton. How are you, Sean?
Oh, I'm just wonderful, Jeffrey. It's like you get banged up by a car one week. I can't figure out how to walk down my steps the next week.
No, but I'm healing pretty. I'm looking good now.
Well, it actually improved. It made an improvement. I'm not going to lie. I don't know how it did that, but you don't look as Waldo-y as you usually do.
No, I don't look as Waldo-y because the part of it is I have lost 22 pounds.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, I mean, and listen, when you can't really eat because your teeth hurt, that will accelerate weight loss.
Yeah, I would imagine. Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm excited to talk with our guest today. He's a really interesting guy. He was the former head monologue writer for the Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon. You could have seen him on Comics Unleashed. And he's been involved in a bunch of stuff, which we're going to get into today. It's my pleasure to welcome in Mr. Jon Rineman. How are you, John?
Hey, good. Good to see you, Jeffrey. It's been a while, man.
It is. How are you holding up? Are you in Massachusetts now?
I'm in New Hampshire. I'm in my home state of New Hampshire. And I think I'm going to be heading down to New York for a few days this week.
You're going to do some shows?
Yeah. So it's sort of... I don't know. There's a few possibilities of things. I don't know exactly where I'm going to end up, but I feel like it's going to be New England for a while.
But you're in New England, guy. So are you a Boston Celtics fan?
I'm a huge Boston Celtics fan.
Jesus Christ.
Hold on, Jeffrey. That's a great segue because you know what I bought for $10 the other day?
What?
A starting lineup Danny Ainge and a starting lineup Kevin McHale.
You got those for $10?
$10.
Wow. That is a Danny.
That is a beautiful, and I have the Larry Bird deal. Yeah, I have the Larry Bird somewhere on my wall of shame over here.
I have those all. Yeah, I have those somewhere. I have that whole 86. They were before my time, but I have that whole 86 starting lineup.
Dude, it's the greatest era of basketball ever. And when you watch that garbage that's on there now, even though there's some great players, there is nothing better than basketball from like 86 to like 93, 94.
That's a good, I agree. I think that that's like the best era. I'd say that, I would go, I don't know. I might go back to like 83. I'm going to say like 83 to 92. That's
can we go the 80s to kind of like up to the 90s?
Early 90s.
I kind of still like the Knicks team that wound up being the 8th seed and then going on to the championship. That was kind of a fun time too.
The reason I like 80s and the 90s is because it was like teams were starting to figure out how to use a 3-point shot. So it was effective. It was a weapon, but it wasn't all the time. And it was like they were still playing basketball. That's why it's my favorite era. And there was also the talent in the early 90s was insane. Like if you look at that, the all the Hall of Famers from that, it's
absolutely
ridiculous. It's just,
and you get to see like one of the greatest athletes of all time at any sport. You get to see his whole career between the 80s and 90s too. It's like, you can't ask for much more than that. Like I laugh when people say like, LeBron is as good as Jordan is. It's like, it's not even a comparison. It's not even a comparison.
But you think about that time in sports. And you look at, you had Michael Jordan in basketball, who's arguably maybe the best player ever played. And then I think without a doubt in hockey, you had the best player in Wayne Gretzky.
Sure.
And
it's really amazing. It's like, and then you had Joe Montana too at the same time. And then, you had, there was all sorts of people that
even on different levels. You had Bo Jackson, who was doing double.
I was just going to say, I was trying to think how to qualify that just because it's a great what if. But it was like Bo Jackson's unbelievable. Like try explaining Bo Jackson to people now and they wouldn't, their mind would blow up.
And even Dion Sanders, you can't explain that to a lot of people either. I mean, he's not as good as Bo, I don't think, but
no, he wasn't as good as Bo, especially in baseball. He didn't come close to Bo Jackson in baseball.
I think Bo was going to be what Michael Jordan was. I think he was going to carry that banner for sports for the 90s until the injury.
And he was great on Tecmo Super Bowl too.
Sure
unstoppable.
Was. Yeah.
I always thought Dion Sanders was also a little overrated as a cornerback because he was not he wasn't a great tackler.
He was Dion. I think the criticism there, and I think it's fair, is that he was just doing a lot of stuff. And it's like he wasn't a tremendous baseball player either. Like he was kind of in and out of it. And he was more of a, to me, like even on those Braves teams, like he was kind of like the third, fourth outfielder. You know what I'm saying?
He was never the third guy. He was more the fourth, fifth outfielder.
Yes.
He was the guy you put into like, a pinch runner late in the game, right?
Yeah. And then so he made a big deal about like, I'm a football player and a baseball player. He was kind of a baseball player, but like
Dion was more of a football player.
That's what I'm saying.
Like
Dion was like, yeah, he also plays baseball. And it was like, and he's a football player though.
I love that you're really into sports as well. But there was something
to be clear, I used to be, as a kid, you're into everything. But I'd say basketball is pretty much all I really follow now from the major sport. Like baseball, I'm out. Football, John, I'm out. And hockey, I never understood. So
I like you, and I've always liked you. But the problem is you're a Celtics fan, and your team just humiliated my team. I am a Brooklyn Nets fan.
First of all, well, you're from Jersey, though.
I'm from Staten Island. I'm originally from Brooklyn, but I live in Staten Island now.
Have the Nets always been your team, or just since coming to Brooklyn?
No, they've been my team for a long time because I went to camp, and the Nets and Islanders would send players to the camp.
Oh,
and they kind of
a real Nets fan,
and they would,
That's rare. You should be proud of that.
I used to go see them at Nassau Coliseum in the ABA.
Oh, there you go.
I went to go see them in Jersey. I had season tickets, and Brooklyn just makes it more convenient for me.
I had a friend who was like a real diehard Cowboys fan, which I never understand how you can be a Cowboys fan in like the New York, New Jersey area. I understand you being an Eagles fan. I can't understand being a Cowboys fan. And I asked him why. And he said back in the day, they used to have these like mail away things like for the Cowboys. You would mail away stuff and then they would send you
they would send you stickers and
banners and stuff like that. And that's the reason why he became a Cowboys fan. It's the only reason why.
My brother-in-law, my sister's husband, was originally from China and then grew up in Canada. And so he was able to just adopt teams because he was in Vancouver and it was like pre-Grizzlies. And so he ends up being a fan of the New Jersey Devils, the Green Bay Packers, and the Miami Heat. And look, man, I'm pro-immigration. I like melting pot, but you can't just pick at large. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like you have to pick a city. I think you have to pick a fandom to be a part of. You can't just pick your teams like it's it's a la carte. I don't agree. It's not a buffet.
Yeah.
So that's my problem with him is that he's always like, my teams are doing great. I'm like, well, you picked the Packers who are always in it. You picked the Heat who are always in it. And like the Devils are good too. So yeah, big congratulations, I guess.
Yeah. Be a Mets fan. But okay, you want to show ball, be a Met fan.
Yeah, remember that guy? Did you guys watch Mad Men? Did you guys ever watch? There was this British guy who came over and he made the Mets his thing, and I thought that was cool. Like, I'm like, if I were to move somewhere, if I were to move to another country, say I was to move to the UK or something, and they had a new soccer team over there, and everyone was like, they're a joke. That'd be my team. I'd be like, I'm going to get on board. I'm going to get on the ground floor of this. And so yeah, I agree. I think, and then he was like, I'm like, how? You can't pick the Heat. You have a team. You have the Grizzlies. You have to like the Grizzlies. I don't know how he got out of that one.
If you live in that region, you got to like that team. I agree.
Yeah.
But you know what? There's something I really wanted to talk to you about.
Okay.
You're a smart guy. You are. You're a smart guy. You have a real extensive career. And you worked in late night TV. So yes. The thing that, when Ali, I saw you post something and it made me think, I'd love to talk to you about this. I want to get your thoughts on the state of late night talk shows now. We're talking Fallon, Colbert, Kimmel, and this especially kind of like losing to cable TV, like a show like Gutfeld. So what does that mean? What message is that sending, and what does that mean for the state of late night TV?
I wrote an article actually for a magazine called The Conversation, and I cheap plug and really cheap because I don't really get paid. But it was an academic paper that I got published in The Conversation, and you can kind of go read. But I think it's I think it's sort of like, it's funny we were talking about sports because it's sort of like that where over expansion. So there's a little bit of things are a little bit diluted in terms of there is no real like Mantle Flagstaff show anymore for late night.
Is it really diluted because you lost Conan, and back in the day you always had, I mean, you still had, when you had Carson, I mean, Carson was the only game in town, but even after that you still had Letterman and you still had the Tonight Show,
right?
And they were still more quality shows, but you haven't seen it really be like what it is, like it is today.
To be clear, Colbert is still winning. So Stephen Colbert is still in first place, and he's I think there were a couple weeks where I think Gutfeld tied him, but Colbert has maintained, at least by today's standards, pretty like normal numbers for like a number one or number two show. And I think a lot of that was he rode the political wave for 4 years, but now I think they get better guests. So I think that's a big thing. And I think he's in the Ed Sullivan Theater, and Letterman's kind of having a second, so people like seeing that theater. So, he's going to be in first place for a bit. I think that there's this, what it is, you said Carson was like the only game. Well, Carson had Arsenio that came along.
Yeah.
And Arsenio kind of took a lot of numbers away from Carson
for a short amount of time.
And he was just it's such a different show.
Like it wasn't such a short amount of time. It was more like a good 4 years. It was from like the late 80s up until Carson retired. And that was part of the reason that Jay wedged his way in there. And with data saying that, hey, Johnny's losing pretty much any viewer under 35 or under 30.
That would make sense because Arsenio went more with the younger crowd. So I mean,
he had guests on. He was more open with his guests. He had politicians on, such as Bill Clinton, who were not getting invited on to Carson. He had pro wrestlers on that Carson thought he was too good to have on. He broke musical acts, particularly in hip hop and R&B, that Carson would not have on his show.
He had Hammer. It was a great performance.
Yep. And then also I think the Beastie Boys, were on there. And then also like, I feel like he had like he dipped his toe at least a little into the grunge. Like he was just kind of like anyone that's a little bit different that Johnny's not going to have on. And then Letterman kind of did the same thing with music. But we're in this era now where it really feels like there isn't a whole lot of real competition. It kind of feels like everyone's got the gig and they're happy to have the gig, and they're happy to just kind of, from the host level, hold on as long as they can. And I understand that from their perspective, because you have 200 people working for you. And so if you're someone who has 200 people working for you and they depend on you, you keep the gig. That's why you saw Conan soldier on for years after years. That's why you've seen Kimmel. Kimmel's been floating retirement for like 5 or 6 years now. And that's real. I can confirm that. He's been wanting to go away, but he loves where he works. He loves his coworkers. He knows they depend on him. Jay Leno did the same thing. And I get that. And so, but if you're someone, I'm not going to specifically name names here, but when you see, constant turnover, and it's, people are coming in, coming out, and it's a revolving door, and you're also not really trying to compete, that's when I'm like, what are you doing? It kind of seems like you're just in it for you, and you're not really taking care of your staff, because you're either driving them away or you're letting them go. So I don't know who you're not like. It's not like Kimmel or somebody or Conan who's like, I got to take care of all these people. And you're also not trying to win anymore. And so it's like, there's a lot of that going on. And then credit to James Corden for, I think James Corden had been unhappy doing that show for a couple of years. I think he found it limiting. The run in England and the way they do TV is much less strenuous than here in the US. And I think Corden had other things he wanted to do, quite frankly, and didn't know he'd get as big as he did, and didn't know the show would take off. And that's a big rock to carry around when you're doing well, surprisingly, at a gig you thought you'd only do for a couple of years. And to his credit, he kept doing shows, but he also stepped away. He finally said, hey, what are we doing? I don't think I'm doing this for the right reasons anymore. And he had enough. He took care of his staff in a way that they're able to do other things with him, or that they were not overhiring so that now people are screwed, that he's quitting. He kind of thinned things down for the last year. And shout out to Corden. And, that's also Nick Bernstein, who's the executive at CBS, who you learned under Rick Ludwin, the famed executive at NBC, who got Leno on the Tonight Show, got Conan late night, kept Seinfeld on the air, was a big champion of Fallon, just a crazy track record for all the great things he did. And they do things right there at CBS. So you have the number one show, and then the show behind it, the host who's like, I feel like we might be starting to go through the motions, said, all right, let's pack it up. Let's go do something else. And I don't want to say there are other shows that or hosts that should do that, but
shows to pack up.
I think, hey, look, if you're not I think the biggest thing hurting late night right now is that, look, from teaching at Emerson, the feedback I got from students was at Emerson College of Boston. A lot of people said it's really hard to tell the shows apart, and it's hard to tell the hosts apart. Sometimes it feels like they're all kind of starting to meld.
That's a great
criticism. Think about it.
Now that we're not politically
white people, we're
not politically centric anymore. Like, it's not like Trump and everyone had to have a different, or an election and everyone had. It's like now in the kind of this weird period where we're kind of in the dog days sort of, and everyone just feels very like vanilla, just very similar.
Well, John, do you think these shows have become too political? I mean, I know, like,
yeah, I do. I think that, I don't think they're too political in the overall scheme of things, because
it doesn't have to be a necessary election. And when you mention specifically Colbert, I mean, sometimes it looks like he's absolutely in bed with the administration. And was there anything more embarrassing than the vaccine sketch? And that's just one of several different things that this guy has done. I mean, I just find these shows to be so unauthentic and not a real conversation.
I will say the vaccine one made me cringe just from a comedic standpoint. But I mean, that happens a lot with me. I mean, Jeffrey, you know me a long time, and you know that I can kind of pick apart anything and go, well, here's why I don't like this. And so that's why I've learned to just kind of go, okay, and laugh along with things. But it brings up a good point in that it's been really a long time since I've seen, the last thing I saw that went viral, and it was like, I watched it more than once, and then I realized, I was like, oh my God, this never happens anymore. Jimmy Kimmel had Katy Perry on. And the goal was, we're going to make a kid song more annoying than Baby Shark. We're going to make the next annoying kid song. And I watched
funny at one time.
I watched it like 4 times, and it was hilarious. It was viral the whole next week. And I was like, this used to happen every day. Someone had something that went viral. And I think here's what I'll say with Colbert, which is interesting though, is that Colbert, even though he's political, if you go and look at his monologues, Colbert does not spend as much, weirdly, even though he's the political guy, he doesn't spend as much time on Trump as Seth, Fallon, or Kimmel. He really does. It's like, I went up because when I was writing this paper, I was trying to make the case. And then I looked at Colbert and I was like, oh, he actually does talk about different things. He talked about the Oscar slap. He talked about the baseball strike that almost happened. I was like, wow, he's making he's just not really doing Trump anymore. He's still winning. And then I will say that when I see something like, yeah, I'll say it. Like when I see like a Fallon monologue that's got Trump in the thumbnail, and it's got 3, on the YouTube thumbnail where it's the Trump does this. And I'm like, and there's like 4 Trump jokes. I'm like, 2 things. He's not president anymore, so who cares what he's saying?
Exactly.
Why are we talking about this guy? We're all tired of this guy. Mm-hmm. Like, forget it. We don't talk about Bill Clinton. Like, forget about it. And then the second part was, Jimmy had a very infamous moment with Donald Trump that he's been trying to live down for 5 years now, where he ruffled his hair in this interview gone wrong. Why do you bring him up? Like, I'm just like, you're bringing up the thing that is your kryptonite, and no one wants to hear it anyway. And then same thing, like Seth will do the closer look, and Amber Ruffin did a great piece after that tragic incident in Buffalo about a week ago. It's like so much has happened since then that it feels like it's been, but I'm like, it's only a week. And she had a great line, and hats off to Seth for letting her throw it in there. Not that not that Amber needs permission. Amber's great and she's going to do whatever she wants, and she should. She's the most talented person in late night, in my opinion. But Seth tried to say something, and she said to him, "And what are we going to do? You're going to do 400 more closer looks on it till we get it right?" And I thought that was a great line. And it was like Seth being self-aware that, like, yeah, this is certainly a little, what are we doing here? Who are we preaching to? And so I will say that in the overall scheme of things, when people say Jay Leno was never political, and I love, not true at all. Jay Leno was more political than anyone in late night right now. If you ever watched his monologue, first of all, he'd do 35, imagine that, 35 jokes every night. And I know, because that was the first guy I wrote for as writing for him personally. It was like a secret freelance sort of thing before the guild kind of came down on that. And rightfully so, because there's Twitter. He has plenty of ways to get your jokes out now. But like, this was the early 2000s. He felt kind of bad, and I ended up doing well. And he was a kind of a friend of a family friend. And I noticed that he did 30 to 35 jokes a night, depending on if they showed a video or had a correspondent. And probably 15 were political. They were anyway, and it was not.
It was soft. It was softer, and
Jeffrey, I will disagree with you. Yeah. If you go find a Jay Leno monologue, I'm sorry, but if you go find a Jay Leno monologue that's talking about the Clinton Lewinsky scandal, those are brutal. Like, he's got brutal jokes in there. And if you go find a George W. Bush monologue, brutal again. He's calling him dumb. He's calling him special ed. Like, I mean, he is fucking killing people. And the reason it didn't come off as well is because, one, Jay has this like he has what I call the Santa Claus effect, which is everyone goes in saying like, I don't know if I like Jay Leno. As soon as you see Jay Leno, I don't know if you've ever seen him in person.
I have, yeah.
As soon as he comes out, he's got this presence where you're like, oh my God, it's Jay Leno. And he's the guy you grew up watching. He's, hey, how you doing? And it just feels fun and it feels light. But if you were to read, and I know, because I wrote some of them, some of the jokes that he told, I wrote jokes for Jay that were far meaner than I ever wrote for like Seth when he did the Correspondence Dinner, or Jimmy when he was trying to get tougher on politics. Jay, the meanest jokes I ever wrote in my life were for Jay Leno, but then they came out of Jay Leno and sounded fun and sounded good. And so he was kind of like,
great point.
And so he was super political. And the difference was it was like, he would just talk about it if it was in the news. And he would not go looking for Trump and saying like, oh, let's go make fun of Trump. What did he do today? Or he wouldn't go looking for Biden and say, it would be like, did something happen? We'll talk about it. The other thing is, the reason late night shows now seem so political, in my opinion, is that by the time they're on TV at 11:30, who on this planet with a smartphone does not know what happened in politics that day, has not formed an opinion on what's happened that day, and has also not gone on Twitter or Instagram or whatever and read dozens, hundreds, maybe thousands of jokes from people about politics. And so that's why I think when you tune in a late night show, you go, oh, it's so politics. It's about the same as it's always been, but we don't need it anymore. We've been reading and hearing and seeing the news all day. And that's why a pitch from the students that I teach, and that I thought, this actually makes some sense, was to do sort of like Ferguson or Joan Rivers used to do, which is pick something that's going on, like all this, picking all these streaming services are going up in price, and people are just trying to decide, which one am I going to keep? Which one am I going to lose? So what if your whole monologue was about that? And you had a whole bunch of jokes, set up punchlines, statistics, things like that. Instead of, because like when I see a monologue, which is the most important part of the show, that's what gets people to stay or turn it off, that goes from story to story. And it's just, I'm like, what is the point of any of this? I could go on Twitter and read all this. I don't need to hear this from you at 11:30 at night. If you're going to give me something, and then if you look who wins the Emmy every year, John Oliver, what does he do every week? He picks one topic. It's not always politics even. Sometimes it's business. Sometimes it's the environment. Sometimes entertainment. And he'll do a whole thing on it, and it goes viral every week, and he wins an Emmy every year. I'm like, hello?
Do you think late night needs to kind of change their format a little bit or make some type of adjustment?
I do. I think Twitter's beating him to the punch. I think social media and cable news and everyone's general awareness of the news is beating them to, by the time you hear it on a late night show, there's always, like anytime you watch a monologue, I bet you there's at least one or two jokes you've already heard or seen that day. It's on
that's a great point, and that's a great observation. And you know what, though, you're partly responsible for no, you are, and here's the reason why. I don't know if you know this, Sean, but it's widely considered that Jon Rineman is the guy that wrote the joke that many people say convinced Trump to run for president.
Well, he did write the joke. That part's true. I can confirm that. And whether or not the other part's true, hey, it's whoever wants to take the time to try to figure out Donald Trump's brain, that's on you, because I don't. It could be. But I do know that he was very upset, and that was.
He didn't laugh. Well, in case Sean hasn't heard, or some of our listeners haven't heard the joke, can you tell us the joke?
It was a very down the middle joke, meaning I thought it was like, okay, like strike one, just to get something across, which was Donald Trump says he's running for president as a Republican, which is interesting because I assumed he was running as a joke. And
that's funny.
Well, to me, it's just okay because I was so desensitized, because by then, this is 2011. So by then, counting Jay, I'd been writing mono jokes for almost 6 years, and I'd been at Fallon for about 2 years. And so I was sort of just like, set up punchline, set up, batting practice, just like, all right, take a swing. Here you go. And to me, that was the last joke I wrote that night. It was the very last joke on the page. But the way Seth told it, let's use another baseball analogy. When you tell a joke and stand up and you're like, it's a little bit different for some reason. You're like, I got all of that one. You're just like, for some reason, the timing tonight was the best it's ever been. I hit it just right. And you go back and you listen to the tape.
Stank on it.
You listen to the tape and you try to learn how to retell. It might be a joke you told for 2 years, and you listen to the tape to learn how to retell the joke. Like something was different this time. And Seth did that. He had a 500-foot home run off of he turned an A- joke into an A+, and Trump was in the room, and the cameras cut right to Trump. And everyone looked at him. And so it was a mix of a guy getting all of it in the way he told the joke. I mean, Seth, I don't know that. I mean, it was Carson-esque, the way the timing and everything. It was just like, oof, that's a joke. Like that. He got all of that. And then Trump was there. And I think that's what made it such a big thing. Now, if Trump's not in the room, whole different story. And it's just, it goes back to being an A-, B+ joke. But, I don't know that I believe that. I think that it was that. I think it was a combination of, think about it. If you're a human being like Trump and someone calls you a joke to your face in front of everybody, there's something about that word joke. And that was not the original word. The original word was prank. And then when I felt it getting cut in the room, I'm thinking, oh, what about joke? And someone else said, oh yeah, that sounds better. That's a harder. So you get called a joke. That's a tough thing for a machismo dude sort to kind of handle. Then after Seth was done, Obama went on and did even better than Seth. Absolutely crushed his monologue. And we didn't know yet, but bin Laden had just been taken out. So Obama's going on there with FU energy. Like he's like, I don't care what I do in this monologue, which is the best way to do stand-up. And he absolutely killed it. And so I think it was a combination. I think it was just probably the most humiliating night of Trump's life to that point. And when something like that happens to you, it might motivate you to go and try to screw everybody that screwed you over that night. And so I was a part of it. And so it just happened to be my joke that happened to be first in the stack that night. And Seth told it really well. And then that's how people like from, in New York, it became a big deal. And so people like Maggie Haberman, New York Times, they wrote all about it and everyone was always talking about it. They always showed it all the clip shows. Seth always gets asked about it on like Meet the Press or whatever. And knowing I think we all feel like we know Trump at this point because he's just been in our face for too long. But knowing that guy, it's like, I'm sure, that at some point there in New York City, in the Hamptons or wherever, the elite, and they all hang out together, regardless of party. People brought that up to him and said, "Hey, man, Seth Meyers called you."
But that's not it wasn't really such a mean-spirited joke.
No, but Trump doesn't have a sense of humor.
It's just an egomaniac thing too.
Yeah. And
no, but when he announced his candidacy, didn't you think about it the same way like Howard Stern ran as a libertarian for governor? I didn't think he was really serious about this.
I didn't think so either.
Joke, I think it's like, it's a put on, it's a prank. I don't think you're calling him a joke.
Well, this was the 2012 election. And so, and then I think what happened was after that dinner, I know that for real, after he was embarrassed at that dinner, Trump, because America's fickle, we go on our whims, his numbers went down. He was thinking about entering the race to go against Obama in 2012, and Trump's numbers went down after that night. And then he dropped out of the race, I believe, that week. I think it was that Wednesday or Thursday he dropped out.
He still had The Apprentice on, right?
Yeah, but also it was like we got Bin Laden and they got the birth certificate, and then he was embarrassed by that dinner, and so he just got it. He took his ball and went home, which is what Trump really always wanted. Once he had that job, he didn't want it, And so, but then I think what happened was, and Trump's talked about this, was Romney got the nomination and ran against Obama and didn't win, and that was a winnable election for Romney.
Absolutely.
And Obama, like him or not, most of his achievements or stuff he hangs his hat on now were second term sort of things. He got Bin Laden and sort of healthcare almost in the first term, but struggled mightily. And that was a winnable election for the Republicans. And Romney didn't even really come close. He had that one debate where he really took down Obama, and everyone's like, oh gosh. And that was it. And then Romney from then Trump talked about it forever. And I think Trump really felt like, had I run, I could have won this thing. And that's when I think he started, metaphorically, because we know he's not doing it for real, running up the Rocky steps, getting ready. And then by 2015, we all thought he was joking. And then it turned out he wasn't. He was running for real. And when he walked on stage and he won that night, everyone looked shocked. Not Donald Trump. And he had this look in his eye of like, yeah, I've been training for this for 2 years and I'm ready. And it was like, and I just remember being like, oh God, it's like when you're playing pickup hoops and you're like, this guy's no good. And then all of a sudden he torches you for like 8 in a row. And you're like, oh crap, this guy's good. Like, that's kind of how I felt when Trump walked on that stage and nonchalantly and confidently was like, accepted the president. I was like, he was trying. He has plans. Like, it was like, okay, so I don't know. It's like, in retrospect, people always I would take that joke away just because it's like I'd rather not have to think about it. And it's funny. Red Auerbach used to say the best trades are the ones you don't make in basketball. Right. And a lot of times I found in comedy, a lot of the best jokes are the ones you don't tell. And we had a couple after the Matt Lauer situation when it was still thought to be just an affair and a little bit of misconduct that I cut from the monologue. And Jimmy said, what happened to these? I said, something about these. I don't feel. And then the next day we found out the gruesome details of the assault.
He fucking went all in. Like on a weird, strange level, you almost have to like give Matt Lauer some credit. Like if you're going to be a fucking,
I'm going to say right now, I don't give Matt Lauer any credit. Don't put that in my mouth. But
I mean, like if you're going to be a sexual deviant, like he wrote the fucking manual.
Well, we had a callback in there that was about. There was a callback to close the monologue about some diamond that had just been sold. And it was like, yeah, they're calling it beautiful. Well, Matt Lauer's wife calls it a start. That was like our closing joke. And I wrote that as a matter of fact. And then as we were in the room before Jimmy came in, I kind of just looked at it and I said, I don't know about this one. It kind of feels like, do we know if his wife's going to get back together with him? Is this house like, this feels pretty serious. And then the next day we got the note that was because, it was just like it was starting to come out what had happened. And I talked to Jimmy and we just decided, I don't think we do it. And no one really did. Because you got to realize when you do those jokes, you're not making fun of Matt Lauer. You're dragging the victims into it. Sure. They have to hear it. And there was something in me when I saw that joke where I was like, this is a good joke, killed in rehearsal. Something about it feels wrong. And I'm always very proud that we cut that because, we would have gotten a lot of heat for that. And so as far as the Trump joke goes, I wish it got cut. I wish it got cut and I never had to worry about it.
John, but when you were with Jimmy, did he have input into the jokes? And did he help revise the jokes?
Jimmy has final say over every single thing that happens on that show.
No, but the same way Vince McMahon does at WWE in the jokes, or would he kind of like, hey, if you guys passed it along, he kind of like went along with it as well? Or was any pushback?
I don't know what the situation is now, but when I was there, every now and then he'd write a joke when 80 Miles was there. And then because we were kind of cruising along and number one, whatever. And then when we were kind of fighting for our lives a little bit and Miles had left and I was kind of in charge of all the jokes and I'd been there a really long time. Jimmy would, I would say maybe once every 2 or 3 weeks send a joke along and they'd always hit. They'd always be good jokes. But other than that, he kind of secretly went to me and someone else, said, hey, you guys take care of this. And then, so I had someone I could run stuff by in case I needed to. And then otherwise I was the judge. And then they would go to Jimmy and he would pick them. But he is the judge and jury. So, and that's the way it works at every show, by the way. There's no, it's not like Weekend Update or something where they sneak jokes in on each other. At a talk show with your name on the marquee, you make the final call on everything. And you do not have a boss other than the network.
Do you submit the jokes or do you pitch the jokes? Like, do you guys tell him?
Submit. So it would always be, on paper, so he would always, the way we did it when I was running things, for a lot of years, Jimmy would come to the meeting and there'd be about 5 pages of jokes and he would read them in the meeting with the monologue writers and kind of hear what we laugh at, or kind of sometimes if we didn't laugh and he liked it, kind of spite us, he'd be like, I like that one. And he'd pick it. And then as he got busier and the show got busier, he wasn't able to come to the meetings anymore. And so then it was whoever was in charge of the monologue would read them out loud, pretending to be Jimmy. So if I need to, I can do a really good Trump, a really good Putin, a really good, Christopher.
You had to do it?
Yeah, I had to do the voice in the room, to really sell the joke for whoever wrote it. And we would do the same thing. And then I'd bring 30 to rehearsal and Jimmy would read them to the people from the standby line that couldn't get into the show. And based on what they laughed at, that's how we did our mono. And then, so it was always, you don't actually like maybe once every now and then, if we had a joke in there that was very sensitive, that was like, ooh, it was a little cringy, I might say to him, hey, what do you, can I just run this by you real quick? Because you're going to have to read this in front of people. And every single time he said yes.
How long does it take to put together a monologue?
It was a day-long process. I mean, actually, it was started the night before. The night before, the sketch writers would start writing their bits that would go in the monologue. And, I used to write most of my jokes at night because I got that lesson from Jay Leno. He's like, I always like to have half my monologue, done, before I go to bed. That was his thing. In the Trump years, you couldn't really do that because you'd wake up at 7 a.m. and see what everyone tweeted and go, oh, God, everything's different now. So, it was really from like, I'd start the night before putting things in place, like kind of coming up with a game plan. And then it was really from
what do you mean by that? Like putting things in place, like a topic or what's trending?
Like we would send out topics to the writers to keep an eye on. We would say, these are things we'd like pitches for. There was one guy, Jonathan Adler. He ran all the stuff that went in the monologue. So if the Roots were going to do a bit, or if we needed a video edit, or we needed a readout, my favorite of all time was there was some hot dog company that they found bones in the hot dogs. And so it was like they've come out with new slogans for the company. So Adler would run all that stuff. As far as the jokes and the topics and the order they'd go, that was all me. And in the last year I was there. And so, it was really from waking up at 7 and, I'd spend a little time with my daughter. And so from 7 a.m. until 4:50 p.m., the monologue was a work in process and a work in progress. And you never knew Trump might do something or Kanye might do something, or there may be a surprise Taylor Swift album, or there could be a sports injury. There was, it could change everything. And then Lauren might walk into the room and go, well, let me see what you're opening with. And he'd see it and go, oh, no, let me see the next one. And you'd go to the fifth joke and he'd go, oh, that's a special joke. You have to open with that one. And it would change the whole order of everything. And so sometimes it'd be 4:57 before 5 where I'd get the tap on the shoulder, the dreaded tap, and you look, or the stage, or you see the stage manager walking your way. You're like, please keep going, please keep going. And they'd come to me and go, Jimmy would like to see you backstage. And they always seemed ominous. And sometimes it was a little ominous, but other times he would just be like, hey, I want to put this joke back in that we cut, like at the last minute. And, Higgins would be out there doing the warm, would be like, all right, everybody, Jimmy's going to be out here in 30 seconds. And it'd be like, how did it go again? And you'd be like, oh, we put it on cards, whatever. And so sometimes you'd go right up to it. And then I'd sit there at the producer's table. And that was the most fun to me. The most stressful part was rehearsal, because we had a stretch there. It was probably 6-7 months where we didn't have a bad one. Like, we just were on a really good roll. We had a really good staff, and everyone had a really good role they'd carved out. But in my head, I just had those feelings of the first early days of when I had to take over for Miles, and it wasn't such smooth. So it's sort of like if you bomb the first time you do stand up, you always, every time you do stand up the rest of your life, you're always like, oh man, I'm going to bomb. And you forget.
That's kind of good though, because you're not going to like take it for granted, and you're going to kind of like, you're not going to mail it in. You're going to like. I sometimes think if you're a little bit nervous before you go on, that's good, because it make you a little bit more focused.
I will tell you, and that's what people always say the same thing. But even when we were in that stretch where it was like headed, as I, headed for the light sort of stretch where it was like, wow, nothing can go wrong. I was always like, oh my God. And then, but the fun part for me that I still miss was when you come out and you're in the studio and you're at the producer's table, and he comes out and he starts telling jokes, and they get the first big laugh, and then you get the second big, and feel, not just hearing it, but feeling the audience laugh. And for me, like for the producers that I'm sitting next to, that's when they're sweating it, because they're timing out the show. They're hoping everything works, but I already know my part's done. I already know the order of the jokes. I already know we've already gone over them, and I could just sit back there and watch. I could watch Jimmy Fallon come out and stand 10 feet away from me in his suit with the 200 something people, and just come out and tell jokes. And it was so fun to get to be a part of that, a front row seat. What's that?
Was he cool?
He was cool. And then a woman named Amy Ozels came in as head writer in early 2018. And I, to this day, don't exactly know exactly what went down, but then the coolness became heat on me. And then not as cool. And it became a little bit oddly, I don't want to say combative, because that would mean I was fighting back, but it became not as cool. And then I'm just like you guys. I read this, every few months there's a new showrunner, every few months there's a new head writer. It just seems like there's a lot of coming and going there. So for the most of the time I was there, I would say 90% of the time, cool. Not as easy behind the curtain as once assumed. I think now people kind of understand that there may be a Jimmy we all see, and then a Jimmy that's a little bit harder on things. That was a bit of a shock for me to discover that for the first time, but I got used to it. And then, something happened where a couple of years ago, or maybe even longer, it just seemed like things shifted. And so I haven't talked to him for about a couple of years now. So he was cool for a long time, but it's a tough gig, and maybe he's changed.
It's fascinating stuff. And I'm just like looking at your resume, and like all the things you've done and the segments you've done. But I just want to switch gears, because I know Sean is interested in this. Is that you also wrote for WWE, right? And
yes.
And you worked with Vince McMahon.
I did. Yeah, I tried to develop a TV show. So
what's it like to now work with that guy?
Oh, so most of my working with Vince was he was trying to develop a show to get on Facebook Live that was going to tape right after SmackDown went off the air on Fox. Mm-hmm. And I was part of that group.
Were you a big wrestling guy to begin with?
Yes.
You are? Okay.
My whole life, yeah. And so I was on Team Raw. So I wrote for Monday Night Raw, but the big thing was trying to help Vince come up with this concept that the pandemic, I think, kind of killed. We were on the 5-yard line when my contract expired, my lapsed. And by then, between their quarter call, which the next week detailed how they lost, I think, $1 billion, and personal stuff in my life and just burnout. Neither of us was, I mean, we liked each other, but neither of us was sad. It was like, remember that scene in Seinfeld where Kramer's at the bagel place and he gets the gum and the guy goes, "All right, man, get out of here." And Kramer's like, "Thank you."
Yes,
that was a little bit, that's kind of how we worked. We liked each other, but I was just like, yeah, it's the Festivus episode. That's who I was. I was like, goodbye. And we stayed on good terms. And, I'd done a lot of work with them when I was at Fallon. So it was just kind of like, but I think what killed it was the pandemic. We were close. We had an idea. There was something that I pitched that Vince really liked, but it was hard to do it because of getting talent to the venue every week and how
what was the bit?
It was going to be turmoil. And there was one of my favorite matches is a tag team turmoil match. And that's when you start with 2 tag teams, 1, 2, 3, the team that loses gets out. The other team stays in, music starts, another team comes down the aisle.
Sounds like the Royal Rumble a little bit.
It's a little bit like the Royal Rumble. I think Pat Patterson was big in this too. I remember Pat at a meeting talking about the similarities once, and then it just keeps going. So it's, 1, 2, 3, whoever loses gets out, music starts, another tag team comes down. And it was called 12-month tag. And the premise was you would have a bunch of tag team turmoil matches. But the issue is that, Vince was always, he even said, he goes, "I like the idea, just the logistics." Like that was his thing. He was just like, "Yeah, that means we got to pull people from Raw to come to SmackDown. How do we get them there?" And they might be
different off camera.
If anybody, I should say, shout out to Bruce Pritchard had the idea that they were going to go with, which was more of a traditional. It was going to be like a throwback kind of show that was going to kind of throw back and have old stuff. It was going to be in the style of I think the 80s. They were going to do like a retro show, and then the pandemic kind of killed it. So I don't want to take credit for an idea because he ended up going with Bruce's idea. But Vince there were some segments this year where he did with a wrestler named Austin Theory.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the real Vince. And so he doesn't yell, "God damn," and, stuff in meetings. I mean, he does in Gorilla at people. But if you look at the segments Vince did with Austin Theory, I texted with some friends that I worked with there and we were all like, "Man, this is the real Vince." Like it was the first time you got to see him kind of be like, "Oh, what does this mean? Why don't you do this?" Or he would give you like this riddle-ish sort of advice where you'd be like, "What does it mean?" And then but then it would kind of make sense later. You're like, "I told you to expect the unexpected," or whatever, And so the biggest difference is the voice. So he kind of talks like this. He kind of grumbles. Doesn't really. He keeps very secretive because that's like everyone from that era of wrestling is you got to keep your voice down. So nobody hears the ideas. Nobody hears nobody hears the finish. Mm-hmm. And he would always talk like this when things got sensitive and we were close to the, and but the other thing is likes to laugh and is one of those guys that will tell the same joke over and over or tell the same story over and over, but it's Vince McMahon telling it, so you're like, okay. And so like one thing is people always bring up like the bedpan, like when Stone Cold hit him with the bedpan. Vince talks about that all the time. I would say every week I was either in there for a meeting. So every week we were in the production meetings. We were all on those. I would say once a month, maybe I get to go up on the Raw meeting. And then every week I was meeting with him once or twice as part of this group trying to come up with the TV show. And I would say at least once a week in one of those meetings, he would go like, "Should I hit me in the head with a bedpan?" And laugh. Like he loves that. Like and if you go, it's funny if you watch the documentary. There's one of the documentaries that they just put on Peacock. Austin or McMahon, I forget who it was. One of them talks. I think it's Vince. Talks about he just loves that. He just thinks that's like this favorite thing. And so
it's one of the greatest. It's one of the most memorable moments.
The funny thing is, it's for real, for shoot, as they say in wrestling. Vince always jokingly, but is he joking? Kind of pitches. Should he hit him in the head with a bedpan? And you're like 75% sure he's joking, but every now and then he'll go, well, should he? And you just kind of go, maybe. And so it's like, that was what struck me funniest. The thing you want to talk to him about most, that's also his favorite thing, So it's like, you never had to ask it. He would just tell you the story. Like, I remember Steve was walking up and down the hall, hitting that pan. He got me good. And
it's like my ultimate job. My ultimate dream job is to be a writer for them.
But here's the thing is that I call it the Eiffel Tower concept or theory, which is that you go to France. What's one thing you want to look at? The Eiffel Tower. You want to look at it. But then you go up into the Eiffel Tower. And what's the one thing you can't see anymore?
Eiffel Tower.
Eiffel Tower. Yeah. And that's sort of the thing is when you go work on a show like WWE, you go work a place that you love as just one of your pleasures in life, you lose it when you're working there. And you don't love it anymore. And then when you leave, you need like a couple months to start watching again. And so I think that's the biggest thing is that, it's sort of like, like we talked about, I love the Celtics, but it's like, say I had that background somehow to go work for them. I wouldn't, because I've learned my lesson. It's like, if it's something you love to watch it. And, sometimes the best job for you is the thing you don't know a whole lot about going in. So you're not, as Vince would say, preconditioned, and you can help and they can use your skills. And I think that's why Fallon worked for me, is that I had only started to watch Fallon when I got my tryout for that summer of 2009. And I was only really watching when I was writing jokes for the show. And so by the time I got hired and I was there in the office, it was still kind of new to me. And so I was still kind of appreciating it and also not afraid to pitch ideas because, I wasn't going to copy anything. I didn't know it well enough to be redundant. And I think that's why it worked out. I think me not totally fitting in with their style and not knowing the show all that well, but just having a sense of who Jimmy was, I think that's how it went. And those are your best jobs. It's when you get the dream job, like, oh my God, WWE, do you think it's realistically going to be as great as you think it is? Is anything ever as great as you think it's going to be? No. So
I would just want to take over the things that I think that need improvement. I would never want to be the lead writer. I would never want to be like a lead writer. I would want to be like guiding and coaching in promos.
I understand that, but having produced a couple promos and more than anything, watched other people such as Bruce, such as Ed Koskey, people who are big names, big experiences business, who really should have all the authority sometimes, especially Ed, who is, sort of in that sweet spot, career-wise, demo, age-wise, and also just has been there forever. He's kind of like a prodigy. Should have the authority to explain, this is why we're going to do this. Please do it. But dude, it never happens that way. The talent, because they're independent contractors, they have the right to push back and say, no, I don't want to do that.
Speaking of which, what do you think about the Sasha Banks Naomi thing?
Well, that's why I kind of curbed my Bruce praise a little bit. Bruce was always fantastic to me and everyone when I was there. But again, that was 2019 before a pandemic when he was thrilled to be back working there. So now that it's through 3 years later and we've been through it and everything's the shits, my guess is Bruce is like, I wish I had that podcast to just do once a week and didn't have to basically help run the company. Probably, it's not what he signed up for. Not what he thought he was coming back to do. As far as Sasha Banks and Naomi, I don't agree with walking out. I wish I could say I was someone who never walked out on a job, but I can't say that. And I don't think anyone can. It's never a job that big, but like, I think we've all had that job in high school or college where you just said, I'm out and you don't go back.
There's a big difference between
right. But still, you're still walking out and you're inconveniencing people. So I don't necessarily agree with that. But I cringed very heavily watching Michael Cole admonish them on SmackDown.
That was a very tough thing to watch.
Now that's Michael doing his job.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
And I'm not going to say whether or not it's just, we know it's him doing his job. And I'll just say, if you looked at Pat McAfee's reaction, that's me. that's my reaction. Where when I heard Michael read that, I just went, oof. I was like, you guys just went from a 50-50 to, boy, I think I'm mainly on, if that's how you're going to talk about two talents who've done so much for you, boy, I think I'm with them now.
Yeah. So Jeff, basically what happened was there's two women who were the women's tag team champions for wrestling. Very big names. One's very, yeah. And they basically had a disagreement again, no one really knows everything that happened, but the basics that's out there. I
know a little bit more than I'm willing to share.
Well, we'll do it off the air.
No, I should say, but I will say that it wasn't handled. I think there were some, I think on both. Yeah. I think they kind of internalized it from what I heard. I mean, I think you get an idea, and there was going to be it was good in the moment for Sasha and Naomi. They were each getting some good news creatively about some plans ahead for them. Long term, they were not good plans for them. So it felt like a Band-Aid push. It felt like a flash in the pan push.
So why did they walk out like during a live segment?
Right before Raw started.
Before Raw.
You don't do that.
And they left but
I think it took them the day, but there were a lot of changes. And this is how we're going to do it. Oh no, now it's this. Oh no, now it's this. And I think every time they were coming around to, I don't know about that, then it would change again. And they would have to think about it some more. And I think that there were some last minute optics that in terms of the way that things were. I think at the last, someone was, it was in a report. So I can say this is that a female producer, and it came out in the press, it was Molly Holly, went in to kind of talk to them.
She was a wrestler at one time, right?
Yeah. You know how that came across was, basically, where was Molly? Why wasn't Molly talking to us all day? So at the last minute, you bring in the female producer to kind of quote, put out the fire. And I think if, think about it if you're the other way, if you're, if you're a guy working in a show where it's predominantly women, say it's a daytime TV show or whatever, and there's a woman trying to get, the woman host and the head writer are trying to get you to do a stunt as a correspondent you don't feel comfortable doing. And then 5 minutes before air, they send in the one male producer to go, hey, buddy, hey, pal. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, definitely.
I think that's what happened there. And so I think that it doesn't excuse walking up, but it's like, I'd be pretty pissed off too if it's like, oh, it's like, you're not even talking to me anymore. You're going to send in, it's like, only a woman can explain that. You know what I'm saying? And also how awkward that must be for
once you walk off, isn't that kind of like a line that you can't go back over? You can't cross. Like, I mean, don't you kind of like lose faith in the company?
It takes a long time. I mean, like CM Punk walked out and never came back.
That's right. Well, he did. Wasn't that from his own volition?
Yes. But he walked out and never came back. And also
Austin.
All these guys seem to come back.
Steve Austin did. And the thing is, to everyone that's saying, well, this looks so bad because it's two black women and this is how they're treating him. I mean, Sean, you can back me up. Punk and especially Austin, they eviscerated Austin when he walked out. I mean, they had The Rock come out and cut a promo. They killed that guy for 3 months. They just buried the hell out of that guy. They had Hulk Hogan talking trash about him. So that's what they do. And so it's like, and it's sort of like, we come from the comedy world, if you have a fight with a booker, at a club, Jeffrey, we've all seen that. Booker goes around, talks trash about that comic for 6 months. And everyone in the room goes, oh yeah, sure. And then they leave and they walk out of there, or the booker leaves and everyone goes, that guy's an asshole. Or they go, man, I kind of was, or they might go, you know what? I'm glad that person's gone, So it's like, it's the life of the independent contractor in entertainment where it's like, it's like if they were under a full-time contract, they probably, you can't just walk out. You would have to show up and do things. But so this is one of those things where it's tricky on both sides, where it's like, it benefits you sometimes, and then sometimes it doesn't. And this was a time when it got the better of Vince. And then he had Michael Cole go on and just in a very awkward way, because it's his job, but he happens to be a white guy with a lot of money. He's been there forever, who basically scolded these two incredible athletes on TV who happen to be black women. And it's like,
So let me ask you guys this then. Vince is getting up there, right? He's got to be close to 80 years old.
About 76, I think.
Things happen in the next couple of years. Who winds up running the company? Is it Triple H? Is it his daughter? Is it his
Tony
son?
Khan.
And does it become like something different?
Well, I think that first of all, never bet against Vince.
He's going to live forever.
If there's anyone who's going to live forever, that's who it's going to be.
Well, yeah, his mom just passed, which like 103 or something like that.
101, I think.
Yeah.
And and she had if you look at Vince's childhood, they both really rough. Some bad stepdads in there. And she lived to be 101. And so I think Vince is one of those dudes. He's got the Jay Leno gene. Where you only need 4 hours of sleep and you can all you want to do is work. And there was actually a study came out that said that is the number. There's certain people that only need 4 hours of sleep and they can just go be people. There you go. Shen's raising his hand. So that's it. So never bet against Vince. That's the first thing. Because if you're going to say like, well, he's going to go any day now, you might be waiting.
What I like about him is like he's willing to try something and fail, and like with the XFL.
But he actually the second. Okay, so that leads me into him. It's interesting you just brought that up. Okay. Is that the second incarnation of XFL was not a failure until the pandemic hit. They were actually doing really well.
I loved it. I thought it was
ratings. You didn't love it. It wasn't.
The rating
it was very different. It was different.
Number one in the demo. Yeah. It was number one in the sports time slot. And it was doing well every Saturday. That was going to be a success.
I disagree. I'm a huge football fan.
Look at the USFL. Look how well they're doing right now.
It's they're playing all the games in the same stadium. I don't, man. You need a little bit of a break.
XFL 2.0 had it not been for the pandemic. But I mean, Sean, back me up. Is that the big talk during the early 2020 was holy shit, Vince McMahon figured out football. Like it
was different. Like they made a couple little tiny tweaks to football, and it was like, all right, this is really cool. And now I think it's gonna be good with The Rock running it too. I think.
Now, interestingly, you just said that. That's sort of my answer for who I think is going to take over WWE.
The Rock.
I think The Rock is going to partner up with.
That's fucking interesting.
Amazon or Disney, and go.
Is that a good thing, John?
That's amazing.
I think it'll be a good thing. Yeah. I think it'll be a good thing in that
with Disney.
Well, I think it'll be a good thing in that it'll probably be unionized. I think that the performance.
What about the product itself?
I think it'll be better. I think it'll be a good thing. I think
better.
I think yes, because if everyone.
Why you say that?
Well, I think it'll be better in the short term because the creative will be better because you're going to have probably WGA writers. If Dwayne Johnson comes in and buys that thing with Amazon or Disney, you have to have union writers. You have to have Writers Guild writers. So you're going to get better writers who are more incentivized to keep the job, and they also don't have to go meet with Vince at 3 a.m. So the creative will be better. Where you're going to run into problems is if you look at WCW, they had guaranteed contracts for their wrestlers. I think they'll do the same thing. They'll say you're going to have a full-time deal where you're SAG-AFTRA and it's like you're signed to a sports team and you're here. But we all remember what happened in WCW. That works pretty well for like 2 years. And then you get to that third year and it's like, man, my ankle's kind of sore tonight. That's not work. That's not going to work for me, brother, as Hulk would say every week. And then you get to the point where it's like the sports team that's saddled with a bunch of bad contracts, and you can have all the bright minds you want in the office. But if the performers can't go out and wrestle, and then, when you're a full-time employee and there's all sorts of investments in you and insurance and all that stuff, it's harder to get cleared to go to the ring. So I think in the short term, it'll be interesting. But what bums me out, if that is how it goes, is that I really like Stephanie McMahon and I really like Triple H. And it really bums me out if they do not get to run WWE.
John, do you think it would be?
And I don't know any of that. That's just my theory.
No. I'm just talking creatively. Do you think, could you see, if they weren't involved, where it wouldn't be quite as edgy? Because I think sometimes it gets a little edgy and it would be like super woke.
No, I think if anything, I think
Was that the thing that scared me with the Many Saints of Newark? I was like, just please don't make him. Well, don't make him. And then it was one character short of a transgendered character in Tony's gang.
Well, first of all, I wouldn't have minded that. That would have made. I mean, period time wise, you couldn't do it. But if you're doing Sopranos set in 2022, that'd make a hell of a character. I'd love to see that. But I think Stephanie as a branding officer is always very conscious of. She's trying to do business. She's trying to get people on TV shows. She's trying to sell merchandise. She's trying to do good things. And she is the conscience of that business, I think, in a lot of ways. She's the angel on the shoulder. And so if she's not in the picture anymore, Stephanie, sorry, they don't like overuse of pronouns. So if Stephanie's not in the picture and then Triple H is not there, I could see them getting actually edgier for a little while because they may be trying to make a statement. But again, like I said, it's all fun and games for the first year or two until it go too far or until it gets old.
Well, you'll understand this too when I say this, that wrestling fans are the worst fucking human beings on the planet. When you read, like, they have such an opinion. The internet complainers, exactly.
Yes, they are.
And people don't understand, like, WWE is never going away. You're never going to wake up one morning and say, oh my God, they closed up shop. It's never going to happen. They may sell.
Vince says never say never.
They may sell. They may do something like
that. It's too big of a brand. It's the NHL is going to go away. It won't.
Yeah, it's too global. But like people are like all up in arms about how AEW is just murdering everything, but
they're not.
They're not at all. Like
it's not murdering anything. It's a good AEW is a very intriguing thing, and I love they came along, but I've not seen it. The problem is it has not sparked real. Vince is not. He doesn't care. It's not sparked any real competition.
And then, guys, why does WWE still hold on to like its sizable audience? And I mean, it seems like there's been threats, for years. The organization come back, they get a little bit of heat, but WWE always seems to win at the end. What is it? Is it just like it feels like home? It feels like
I think it's just like. Man, if you're someone, and it's everybody, anyone that grew up in like the 90s and like the late 80s through the 90s, and male, female, gay, straight, whatever. If you hear WrestleMania is that weekend, 85% of us are going to go, oh shit, it is, and be excited. Yeah. And so it's one of the, and more so, might I add, than the Olympics, than the Super Bowl.
Oh, not the Super Bowl, but the Olympics, definitely.
But Jeffrey, the Super Bowl, if your team's not in it and you don't like the halftime act, you might not watch that.
I never watched the halftime act.
I'm just saying there's a billion things to watch. But if you're a grown up, if you grew up in someone who grew up in the 80s or 90s and you hear it's oh my God, it's WrestleMania.
Yeah.
You're automatically thinking, what? Maybe the Undertaker will show up. Maybe Stone Cold will show up. This year, Stone Cold did show up. Or maybe The Rock will show up. That's
which
next
was a mind-blowingly good match for somebody who has not been in the ring for 19 years.
And then, it was great. And then you'll see a new person and you'll say, what are they all about? They remind me of someone. It draws you back in. And so I think that's why everyone's a yo-yo wrestling fan, is that they go up and down. Is just they're like, I'm done with this. Wait, who's that? And so I will say that one of the great tragedies to me was that, and it was another casualty of lockdown and not being able to go do what you normally did. But man, I really wish when Bray Wyatt was doing the Fiend in the Firefly Funhouse.
Dude, that was one of the most refreshing things you've ever seen.
I wish we had gotten to see Bray go on the Today Show or the Tonight Show and be a guest. Right. Yeah, or go on Colbert where they're not smartened up and they don't really know what he's all about, and just have him. And what a missed opportunity, because I really think that was that. And I teach one of the classes I taught at Emerson was writing the short subjects of short films. And so we watched the Firefly Funhouse match because it's a short film. And these students who don't watch wrestling, they're all comedy or drama people in Emerson. They were transfixed by this thing and became in the moment giant Bray Wyatt fans. Yep. And to the point where now that he's in movies, I'll get emails from students being, oh my God, Bray's in another horror. Like, they love this guy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that to me is the true tragedy, where I'm like, gosh, he was your neck. That was your next Stone Cold or Rock or John Cena.
1000%.
That was your guy. And they just didn't get, and I just think that Vince maybe didn't get the why or how of it. But
well, you look at him, he's a heavy dude. He's not a small guy. He's the complete opposite of what this typical superstar looks like. He's not this huge.
He was their next guy, though. He was their next 5 years of getting people to watch the show. And like I said, with no live crowds for a year and a half, 2 years.
That was tough. It was tough to watch too, but they
burned through every. And I remember when I was there was sort of some pitches. There was a ton of meetings. Everyone just went, it's kind of like when everyone on SNL wanted to write for Eddie Murphy. We all wanted to pitch for The Fiend, and Bray Wyatt. We all wanted to have Bray ideas. And I got to work with him twice. There was once where I was really just kind of helping out. There's another time where I directed and produced the segment. What I to this day say the most electric performer I've ever been around in terms of doing a pre-shoot, in terms of performing to camera. Amazing, just an amazing professional. And he'd be talking to you, hey man, he'd be talking about fantasy football and be like, ready to go. Yeah, wow. And he would turn into the guy and you're like, oh my God, there he is. But there were a lot of things stacked. Like these are ideas we can do with the Firefly Funhouse over time. But with no live audiences, Bray became 90, or not 90. He became 50% of that show some weeks where it was all about the Fiend, and he's having to play 2 or 3 characters. And I think they just burned through everything. And I think that by the time it was time to bring fans back, they were all just frustrated with each other. And they've openly said that, where they were just like, and I think it's a real shame because there was if you were able to space out some of those turns for Bray that they had to burn through in a 6-month period that were supposed to last 3 years, he's your next guy. And it really
look what Roman's doing now. It's the same thing.
Yeah, I'm telling you, man, if you had Roman and Bray, if you had the yin and the yang to kind of go, that's, as Heyman would say, that's money.
By the way, we just set a record on this show.
Why?
Okay, we're over an hour and we haven't even come close to talking about music.
Let's talk music.
Well, yeah, we're gonna wrap up, but I do want to talk music because
sure. What's your favorite wrestling theme song? There you go.
No, because John's music acts I thought were great. I mean, we've been doing this show for like 2 years now.
Over 2 years. Yeah.
Over 2 years, and no one has, and we haven't even talked about this. No one has brought up the Beach Boys, and you're a big Beach Boys fan, right, John?
They're my guys, and I'm going to tell you, and I'm not trying to precondition, but I'm just looking at you. I know Jeffrey, and I'm just looking at Sean, and don't jump at me too much, but Beach Boys and, believe it or not, Barenaked Ladies. They're my 2 bands that I ride or die with.
Both those bands. I think in my top 5 songwriters of all time is Brian Wilson.
Of course.
That's how I got into Barenaked Ladies. Yeah. And then I went and saw them, and if you see them in person, fuck it.
Barenaked Ladies are great live.
Yeah, they blow you away.
I saw them a couple of years ago. I was in Hartford. I did weekend of shows. Sunday I stayed. Mm-hmm. It was Hootie and the Blowfish, Barenaked Ladies.
Oh God, you got to go to that?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they were great. Yeah,
it was a
taking my daughter. My daughter. It's funny. I was a Stephen Page person, so when he left the band, I kind of went away myself for a while. And then I have a 5-year-old daughter, and when she started listening to music again, she really gravitated towards the songs that Ed sings, like "Pinch Me" and "One Week" and "If I Had $1 Million" and stuff. And so
he has that voice.
And so I went and I got
type of voice.
I went and I got some more of their more current stuff, and I get it now. Like I'm like, she likes them sort of like when I was a kid. I loved the 80s Beach Boys. I loved the Kokomo Beach Boys of wearing the Hawaiian shirts.
Yeah, I was blasting that song yesterday.
Having the dancers.
That song "Get Your Back" was another great 80s.
And "Wipe Out" with the Fat Boys.
That was great.
Still cruising, and that was my thing. But I remember my mom was more like, she liked it, but she was more like, man, it's not the same without Dennis, or man, it's not the same without Brian. And, she liked them more in their rock and roll 70s days when they would, kind of be like, almost like the Grateful Dead sometimes, where they would just jam out and rock out. And so I see my daughter, she likes Barenaked Ladies, that she knows them as the Big Bang Theory band. She knows that that's their Kokomo. That's their highest selling song of all time, past 1 week now. And so that's her band. She knows they're Ed's band, just like to me, they were Mike's band. and I just kind of watch it and I enjoy it through her eyes. And then, when Stephen Page comes to town, I'll call a friend and we'll go see Stephen Page. So I'm taking her to see BNL this summer, and it's kind of nice. It's like I have an excuse to like them again without feeling disloyal to Steve, who's a really great guy. So
are they headlining a tour, or are they supporting somebody?
They're headlining. They got Gin Blossoms and Toad the Wet Sprocket opening up.
That's a fun show.
Which is one of the most underrated bands of the 90s is Toad the Wet Sprocket.
Yeah, I like Gin Blossoms. So it's going to be my her first concert's going to be.
I may have to go to that show.
2 days after that, because Dad needs something out of this. I'm taking her to see Chicago with Brian Wilson. Jardine. So in 3 days, she's going to get like the music experience of her life, which she probably won't remember, 2 years.
We got to meet Chicago last year. I was able to arrange it for my wife. It was supposed to be a Christmas gift. It got getting pushed back. And so we got to, get there before the show. We took pictures on the stage. It was really, really cool. My wife, big Chicago fan. You're gonna love it. Have you ever seen the Beach Boys live?
Have I seen the Beach Boys live, Jeffrey? So I saw the original Beach Boys. I saw the full Beach. I've seen the full Beach Boys 7 times. And then I've seen all the various iterations since Carl passed away, each several times. So I saw saw them with Carl 3 times in the 90s. Oh no, sorry, twice in the 80s, once in the 90s. And then I saw when they did the reunion in 2012. They came to Fallon, and I got to hang out with them all day, which was amazing.
That's so
and
cool.
I got to see them there, and then I saw 3 more shows on the reunion tour. So yeah.
That's awesome.
And when you're 5 or 6 years old, and the light, the way they would do it is they go, "Ladies and gentlemen, America's band, the Beach Boys," and the lights would go up right as California Girls started, and they do the intro, and they'd each come out, and then they'd have the dancers each come out as different girls. So it'd be the East Coast girl, the business suit, Midwest farmer's daughter, and the overalls and everything. And dude, when you're a 5 or 6 year old kid, and there's that part of the show where it's all the girls doing all the stuff and Mike doing all his stuff like he does as part of the song. And then the car songs, when you'd have they do like 5 car songs in a row, dude, it's like, it's literally, it's ecstasy as a 6-year-old boy to hear Little Deuce Coupe, 409, Little Old Lady, Shut Down, I Get Around, just back to back to back with all the gimmicks and the lights, and Mike's playing the sax and the shutdown. So it was unlike anything else.
But if you don't like the Beach, because the Beach Boys, if you ever look at their set list, I mean, it's the only band that I know that does over 30 songs. They'll do like 37 songs.
Yeah, most of the songs are 2.5 minutes.
Well, that's the thing. You don't like it, boom, you're right into another one.
Dude, you brought up an interesting point. Is that here's what I'll say about Mike Love. I'll say a lot of things about Mike Love, but the one thing I'll say that's it's a overly positive is I think he's the best set list maker in music history for putting together a set list. I would say
you're not walking out disappointed.
No, and but not just the songs, but the sequence, because the order, everything makes sense and everything is put in, and he can do. I've seen. Because when they came on the show, I was friendly with those guys, and so I became friendly with Al, and I became friendly with David, and I've seen Mike literally.
I think it's Al Jardine's son is in the band now.
And I'm seeing. He's with Brian.
He sings the highs.
He's great, Matt Jardine.
He's unbelievable.
But I've seen Mike sit down with Scott Totten, their musical director, with like a nap. He had like a napkin, and Scott had the computer, and literally just go, "Oh, we'll do it again. We'll do Little Honda next. Got to have some surfing after that. We'll do Catch a Wave. What's our biggest surf? It's on Surf and Safari. I'll put that at the end." And it's like he can put together a 2-hour concert, sort of like a comic going on at the Strip or going at the Cellar, and they're running late and they got to write on an like Mike Love can do that. And they can open with anything, they can close with anything. Yes, they totally can. You always got either Surfing USA or Fun in your back pocket. And then for an opener, it's like, well, we could do California Girls. We could do It Again. There's all sort of different things. We can, we do rock and roll music. It's like, what am I in the mood for today?
When you have so many hits like that, it makes life so much easier too. I remember
there's always some that they have fights over at the end where they're like, there's songs that they cut. We're like, you'll see them cut, in my room. Be like, holy shit!
You can't cut in my room.
Will, or they'll cut, or they'll cut. Be true to your school. And you'll be like,
that's
what?
okay. You can cut that song.
And you'll be like, how are you? And then it's just, we don't have time.
I remember talking to Jim Florentine about Guns N' Roses. He's like, when you're playing Welcome to the Jungle as your second song, and it's probably your biggest song that you have,
dude, that's
the show's only going
to open with that a lot of times.
Sure.
It's really nice. And that I always think to myself, it's funny we say that, because to me, the two best concert openers are California Girls and Welcome to the Jungle. Those are my two where I'm like, when the opening chord, the guitar song, it's like, man, you can't lose. Like, you're going to have a good time. Like, it's or, Do It Again's not bad, but California Girls and Welcome to the Jungle, I'm like, who the band is, what it's going to be like. And there's just like the balls to come out and start with those songs.
Mm-hmm.
Of
Sabbath
like, hey,
opening
our
with
most
War
famous
Pigs
song
is pretty good.
What's that?
Sabbath opening with War Pigs with the sirens of it. That's a great opening
and
too.
Bruce
It's a slower song,
Bruce used to open with Born to Run. And so
Bruce never opens with Born to Run.
He used to.
Sure, he does.
I toured with Bruce twice. Never seen him do it.
I have about 400 Bruce concerts on bootleg right now. I guarantee you.
But maybe early on, but I mean, you were just talking about guys with like catalogs. Holy shit! Also, there was another band that you brought up, John, when we were going back and forth, and I love the Wilburys.
Oh God, Traveling Wilburys. That is, what a travesty that people. Right. I honestly kind of feel like, it's what they would have wanted. So the Traveling Wilburys, it was people. This is a real band, a real pretend band, but it was a real thing. They pretended they were other people, but it was George Harrison, Roy Orbison, Tom Petty, Bob Dylan, and Jeff Lynne. And it's they all used fake names.
Yeah.
They were just like, like Lefty Wilbury and Arby Wilbury and like all these different things. And it was them. And it's what they would have wanted, in a weird way, that not more people know. Because like that is, in my opinion, the dream team of bands. Like, it's not like a real band where it's not like you can say like it's like the Beatles or the Beach. It's like they only did a couple albums. It was like a one-off, 2 albums, and they only did one with Roy before he passed away. And so it was sort of like the dream team, the basketball dream team, was like, this is a once in a lifetime thing. They are friggin' believable. They are so good. And it's like, I think that's the big reason why I got into BNL, Barenaked Ladies, was because it was a similar dynamic of,
I could see that,
just fucking around and
I could see the
fun with some dark undertones.
Yes.
And the vocals are very similar. When it goes from George to Roy, it's very similar of Ed to Steve, where you have sort of the pleasant voice, the radio voice, and then the operatic voice comes in and and they have the same kind of songs where like Barenaked Ladies will have One Week or Pinch Me, which sound fun, but are very dark, really. And then the Wilburys are all of Heading for the Light and Last Night, which sound fun, but are actually really dark. And it's like, I think that's why, and it's like, it's almost like a practical joke on the listener. And so I love them. I
think the two bands that are very difficult to cover. I don't know. I can't ever imagine anyone singing You're Not Alone other than Roy Orbison.
No. Yeah. And it's like, I've heard, it's really just like, and also the fact that he gave that song to the band, which is something. I mean, that's a Roy Orbison song. But it was just, Roy was like, man, we need something here this is all fun and game, but we need something here that's a little bit touching. And then when he lost that, he was like, man, what do I do now? And then he busted out You Got It for his own album later that year.
Also produced by Jeff Lynne.
Jeff Lynne. And so that was Jeff help. That was the help on the back end was, hey man, you gave away You're Not Alone. So yeah, we'll get you your hit single. And he did. And it's just like, I think that's what makes them so amazing to me, where it's just like, when I describe that band to people who are my age or older, they'll go, what? That's not a real thing. And I'm like, dude, that's a real band. There was a band with all these guys. And they're like, what? And then I'll get a text 2 days later and be like, holy shit, what is this? Is this real? I'm like, it was a real thing. And they're like, why wasn't more done? I'm like, well, Roy died. So that was the problem.
Yeah.
But they also never toured.
Problem, yeah.
They never toured. So it was always just kind of this
That's right.
This mythical thing of the traveling Wilburys. And that's a fun game for people to think about, is who would be today's traveling Wilburys. I always kind of think of that. Like, you got to probably put Bruce in there, maybe Darius Rucker. And you do a female version of the traveling Wilburys, but it's like, it's interesting. I'd love if that happened. If like bands,
Bono, maybe.
No, here's where you go. Bingo. Dave Grohl, John Mayer. You got to put John Mayer in there.
Probably.
He's an amazing guitar player and he's a great songwriter as well. Do you go old school and throw John Mellencamp in there too? I got to put Bruce in there. Bruce is. I don't know that Bruce would do that. I don't know that he would do that.
Oh, I think he would do it. No. He did the Seeger sessions.
Well, he was a big Orbison guy.
Yeah,
that's true too.
I think it would be fun if they came along as like the next generation of Wilburys and did some new songs, and then also played Handle with Care and played,
just keep the brand going.
Yeah, it'd be fun. That'd be an amazing thing.
That's a great.
Do what Mike. That'd be a good way to do the awful thing that Mike Love is doing with the Beach Boys right now. Just, Mike and a bunch of whatevers.
Well, John, you're the most successful person on this show tonight. I might make some fucking phone calls to some fucking people that and make it happen.
Maybe. I'd love to write a piece on that. I'd love to see the Wilburys keep going.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
John, we could talk to you for another 2 hours, but we have to wrap this up. So I listen, dude, I cannot thank you more.
Yeah, it's just fun
for joining us.
Jeffrey. It was great seeing you. It was nice meeting you, Sean.
You as well.
Yeah, and I hope to see you when you're in New York, and hopefully we'll be on a couple of things together. But I wish you good luck. Are you still teaching at Emerson?
Yep, signed up to go back in the fall. So still
enjoy your summer, and
thank you, my friend.
Your students are lucky to have you. And again, we thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeffrey.
Okay,
thank you.
Take care, man.
Thank you, Sean.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, everybody.